Chaos Legion is an extremely polarising game that revolves around seemingly mindless hack-and-slash gameplay and is accompanied with a ridiculously edgy story. It's easy to think very little of Chaos Legion, and rightfully so. The game suffers from numerous flaws and is pretty archaic by today's standards, but it brought about a really interesting idea to the 3D beat-em-up genre that made the game stand out from other games at the time. This being the ability to summon powerful monsters known as legions to assist you in battle. Before I talk about the gameplay, I need to address the abysmal storytelling that Chaos Legion shoves down your throat. Chaos Legion takes itself way too seriously, and for good reason. The entire game is based on a Japanese novel that was never translated into English. Of course, the story doesn't start right at the beginning of the novel, that would be too easy. Instead, they force players to figure out the story themselves, despite being given barely any context as to what is going on. Perhaps this was the intention from the start. Present players with a vague story to unravel, only for a massive exposition dump at the end explaining pretty much everything that happened. All I can say is that Chaos Legion's storytelling is not only confusing, but its edgy writing makes for an experience that is so laughably bad that some may actually find some amusement in it, but others will be bored to tears.
The time has come. When the time has come, the time has not yet come. The time has finally come.
On the surface, Chaos Legion's combat is pretty bare bones, but there are some intricacies that do make the game a bit more interesting than the average beat-em-up. The most obvious being the legions themselves, as they play a major role in defining the overall experience of Chaos Legion. By himself, Zeke has a basic 4-hit combo, an aerial spin attack, and a diving aerial attack. He can also lock onto enemies by shooting a bolt of electricity at them. No, I'm not making that up, he shoots red electricity at enemies to lock onto them. Let that sink in for a minute. Other than that, however, there really isn't much that can be done with Zeeg, which makes him seem like a pretty lame character to control at first, but once you start utilising his legions, Zeeg becomes a powerhouse that is capable of controlling the field of battle with ease. Legions are essentially the ultimate crowd control, and with tons of enemies littering the screen, you will need to use them a lot. The challenge comes with how and when the legions are used. Much like Zeeg, the legions have a health bar in the form of a soul gorge, and can die if the soul gorge runs out. Therefore, players have to summon the legions at the right time and put them away when they are in danger to minimise soul depletion. You can also expend a portion of a legion's soul to perform an assist. This can only be performed when no legions are present on the field, and their effects vary greatly. The assist moves aren't exactly balanced, but can be fun to experiment with. Each legion serves a different purpose. Some are aggressive and close in on enemies, while others stay behind and shoot enemies with projectiles. Only 2 legions can be equipped at a time, and certain levels require legions to access certain areas, meaning that you may end up having to swap legions around at times. The controls feel a little awkward at first, and take a bit of getting used to, but they get the job done. Considering the fact that the dodge roll requires you to focus the camera, which limits Zeeg's movement, it's better to jump away to avoid attacks as opposed to dodge rolling. To make matters worse, the game is brutally hard on normal difficulty, and checkpoints are pretty sparse. So in most cases, if you die, you have to restart the entire level all over again. Talk about one hell of an ordeal. I find that the biggest issue with the combat, however, is that many of Zeeg's abilities are locked behind the legions, and players are required to level up the legion's enchant level to unlock all of Zeeg's actions. This can be a bit of a chore to do, and backtracking may be necessary. The problem is that backtracking only becomes available after stage 9, and until that point you are unable to farm experience for legions. Considering the fact that Chaos Legion is only 14 stages long, and that the legions take millions of experience points to level up, you will find yourself suffering through a very bare bones experience for a sizable duration of the game. This is a massive problem, and many players will get tired of using the same moves over and over again for most of the game, due to having very little variation in Zeeg's attacks. I can safely say, however, that once you have maxed out all the enchant levels of your legions, Chaos Legion's combat becomes a lot of fun. But by that time, you'll have already reached the last stage in the game, and by the end of the game, there isn't much to do besides acquiring the Ultimate Legion by collecting chips found in each stage. In a way, it's kind of a waste that these abilities are locked at the start, as they would have made the game a lot more enjoyable to play. Though many of the moves Zeeg unlocks are extremely powerful, heavily abusable, and allow for much greater crowd control, diminishing the necessity of using legions entirely. It's an experience that is best characterised as cathartic, and sometimes that's all you really need in a 3D beat-em-up. Chaos Legion's gameplay loop may not be enough to satisfy most people, but it certainly managed to satisfy me in the long run, even if the experience as a whole is a heavily flawed mess. One thing that does not disappoint, however, is the game's soundtrack. Chaos Legion is filled to the brim with epic choir chants, techno and rock music that does a fantastic job of making the player feel empowered. I think the music is the biggest reason why I managed to make it as far as I did in the game. The visuals, on the other hand, are a mixed bag. While the character models and animations do look great, the environments leave a lot to be desired. You could argue that because the levels are designed around fighting enemies in large quantities, they feel empty as a result, but I've played PS1 games with better looking environments, and Painkiller, a game made only 1 year after Chaos Legion, proved that you can have both large and open environments that look visually stunning. Put simply, I can't really give Chaos Legion a free pass here. All in all, Chaos Legion is a guilty pleasure of mine, and I love it for what it is, but it's very hard for me to recommend to people outside of those who are curious about an earlier concept of summoning minions to assist you in real-time combat. Having said that, I do think there will be a crowd of people out there that will love it just as much as I do, since the game offers an extremely satisfying, cathartic experience throughout, even if it does lack flexibility early on, and can be a bit frustrating at times. If you stick with it, the game will eventually reach a point where it can hold its own against other 3D beat-em-ups at the time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see a written version of the review, click the link in the description to be taken to Cynical Gaming Blog, where you can find many other reviews I've done in the past, as well as my original Chaos Legion review. In any case, I'll see you all next time.